My parents kicked me out on Thanksgiving for not paying for a vacation. A month later, they asked for help after my brother lost $25,000 gambling. "This is our thanks for your little support," they stated. I told them I stopped paying the bills and fled, but they laughed. A month later, Thanksgiving was meant to be about family and giving thanks. Instead, my father looked me dead in the eye in the middle of supper and told me, "You have to leave." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. "What?" My mother avoided my gaze. My younger brother and sister kept their heads down, pushing food around on their plates as if they were trying to disappear. My father, on the other hand, appeared serene, as if he'd already made up his decision. "This is our gratitude for your small assistance," he remarked, shaking his head. I gave a quick laugh, believing it was some sort of strange joke. "What the hell are you talking about?" My father reclined in his chair, arms crossed. "You're not pulling your weight, Jack. You've been here for months, and we don't see much help from you." I stared at him. Am I not doing my fair share? I had been living with them for a few months, but I wasn't just sleeping on their couch. I held a full-time job. I bought groceries, not only for myself, but for everyone. I paid for takeaway when they didn't want to cook. I also paid my younger siblings' internet bills because they required them for school. And that doesn't include the times I provided my father with gas money or covered auto maintenance when he grumbled about being short. I wasn't anticipating a prize, but being told I wasn't contributing at all, this was ridiculous. I scoffed. "Are you serious? I've paid for stuff." "Not enough," my father interrupted. "You're a grown man. You should take care of yourself." And that's when it struck me. It wasn't just about me staying at their house. This was about the talk we had a few days before. They had asked me to pay for the vacation, not just a weekend getaway, but a full-fledged luxury resort with flights. They wanted me to pay for the entire thing. At first, I assumed they were joking. When I learned they weren't, I said no. My father's face darkened, and my mother gave me a look as if I had personally offended her. After that, things got weird. They stopped talking to me so much, and now they were kicking me out. I breathed slowly. "So this is about the vacation, huh?" My mother pursed her lips. "Jack, family supports each other." I laughed. "Yeah? And what exactly have you done to support me?" My father threw his hand down on the table. "Enough. If you're not willing to help, then you can leave. Simple as that." I shook my head. "Fine. I'll go." I gazed between them. "And I'm done paying for everything. No more groceries, no more bills, no more helping out." That made my father giggle. "Go ahead, loser. See how long you last." I gazed at my younger siblings. My sister was staring at her plate. My brother would not look at me. Nobody would stand up for me. That night, I packed my belongings. It did not take long. I hadn't really settled back in. I'd always assumed this was only temporary. I discovered a cheap place in the neighboring town, not fantastic, but mine. Then, for a month, nothing. No calls, no texts. I assumed they had washed their hands of me, and I was comfortable with that. Until one night, the phone rang. I saw my mother's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer it, but something told me it wasn't a random call. Something wasn't right. It had been a month since Thanksgiving, and I hadn't heard anything from them. Not a single call, not a single text. At first, I kept checking my phone, expecting my mother or perhaps my sister to contact me to see how I was doing. Nothing. I told myself I didn't care and was better off, but it still hurt. I had spent months assisting them, ensuring my younger siblings had what they required, and paying for items without being asked. And once I stopped, it was as if I never existed. But after a while, I started to like the silence. My apartment was small and shabby, and I could hear my neighbors through the thin walls, but it was mine. Nobody asked me to pay for their groceries. No one expected me to pay their expenses. For the first time in months, my paycheck lasted. I could purchase something for myself without feeling guilty. Then, suddenly my phone rang. I had just sat down with a plate of leftover takeout when I saw my mother's name flash across the screen. I simply stared at it for a second, perplexed. They hadn't called me since I left, not even to see whether I was still alive. And now, suddenly, they were reaching out. For a second, I considered ignoring it and sending it to voicemail, but something felt off. I sighed and answered, "Hello?" There was a pause on the other end. Then my mother's voice came through, quieter than usual. "Jack, we need your help." I nearly laughed. "Now you need my help? What? Did your vacation plans fall through?" I asked, not trying to mask my sarcasm. She did not respond. Instead, she simply replied, "It's Ryan." That made me sit up. "What about him?" She paused. I could hear muted voices in the background, my father shouting something I couldn't understand. Then she explained, "He lost $25,000. I felt my stomach drop. He what? He gambled, she acknowledged. I ran a hand over my face. Ryan was barely old enough to drink, much less gamble. But $25,000? That was more than just a few hundred in poker losses. This was serious. How the hell did he even get that kind of money? I demanded an explanation. He borrowed it, she explained, her voice cracking slightly. I closed my eyes. Jesus Christ. And now, she went on, he owes it all back, and we don't have it, Jack. We're completely out of money. I sat back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. A month ago, they laughed in my face when I declared I was done paying for everything. They had kicked me out on Thanksgiving. And now, they were desperate for my assistance since my foolish brother had gotten himself into a huge debt. It would have been so easy to hang up on them and tell them it wasn't my problem. Let them deal with it. But despite everything, I couldn't. Ryan might have been foolish, but he was still my brother. And if he did borrow that much money, it was not from a bank. This was horrible. I breathed slowly. I'm coming over. My mother's voice was filled with relief. Thanks, Jack. I didn't respond. I simply hung up, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I knew that this was only the beginning. The drive back to my folks' place felt odd. I hadn't been there since the night I left, and I never expected to return so soon. The neighborhood looked the same, even in late December. A few houses still had Christmas lights up. The same old beat-up automobiles sat in the drives. Everything was exactly as I remembered it. However, it felt different. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for a while, clutching the steering wheel. Part of me wanted to turn back and drive away, but I sighed, exited, and proceeded to the front door. Before I could knock, my mother opened the door. She appeared weary. Jack, she sighed. Come in. I stepped inside. The house smelled the same, like cinnamon air freshener and whatever cheap candle my mother always bought, but the energy was utterly different. Ryan was seated on the couch, stooped over and staring at the floor. My father stood at the dining room table, arms crossed, appearing angry. Nobody spoke for a second. Then I asked, all right, someone tell me what the hell happened. Ryan did not look up. My mother sat next to him and caressed his back as if he were a young child who had just skinned his knee. My father was the one who reacted. Your brother was an idiot. That's what happened. Ryan eventually spoke, and his voice was quiet. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I stared at him. How do you accidentally lose 25 grand? He let out a nervous breath. It started small, just a couple hundred. Then I won big, so I kept going. He eventually looked up at me, his face pale. And then I lost everything. I shook my head. Okay, but you didn't have 25 grand to lose. So who the hell gave you the money? Ryan paused. My father responded for him. He took out a loan. Something about how he said it made my stomach turn. What kind of loan? My mother spoke up calmly. Not a bank loan. I felt my jaw tightening. So what? Some backroom loan shark? Nobody responded, but their silence revealed everything I needed to know. Jesus Christ. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Okay, and when exactly is he supposed to pay this back? End of the week, my father mumbled. I let out a slow breath. And you have nothing? My mother shook her head. We're already maxed out on our credit cards. We don't even have enough for next month's rent. I leaned against the wall and took everything in. A month ago, they declared me a loser and kicked me out. Now, they were drowning in debt, desperate, and looking to me for help. I had the money, not all of it, but I'd been saving since I moved out. I could handle at least half of that, but should I? They had completely abandoned me. My father had literally laughed at me as I walked out the door. But Ryan, he was different. Yes, he'd been a jerk, but I could see fear in his eyes. If he owed money to the wrong people, this was more than just a lesson to learn. It was risky. I breathed sharply. I can cover some of it. My mother gave a sigh of relief. My father said nothing. Ryan only nodded, his gaze fixed on the floor. I'll wire you 12 grand, I announced. That's all I can do. My mother grabbed my hand. Thank you, Jack. I pulled away. Don't. Just make sure this never happens again. I turned to Ryan. And you? You're going to pay me back every damn cent. He gulped heavily. I will. I did not believe him, but I'd deal with that later. For the time being, I had simply bailed them out, even though I knew I shouldn't have. I couldn't help but wonder if this would make a difference. Little did I know how incorrect I was. I wired the 12 grand that night. My mother nearly sobbed. My father whispered what I believe was a thank you, but he couldn't look me in the eye. Ryan only nodded, still looking sick to his stomach. I did not remain after that. I made it clear that this was a loan, not a gift, and Ryan would repay me. Nobody argued. As I drove back to my apartment, I told myself I had done the right thing. It was not about my parents. It was about Ryan. He was my brother, and as much as I wanted to let them all sink in the disaster they created, I couldn't stand by and watch Ryan get harmed over something silly. A week went by, then two, then a month, and nothing. Ryan had not sent me a dime. No calls, no texts, nothing. I waited and gave him the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps he was back on his feet. Perhaps he was working things out. Then, one day, I broke down and called him. He answered after a few rings. "Hey, Jack." I got straight to the point. "Where's my money?" There was a pause. I don't have it yet." I clenched my jaw. "You said you'd pay me back." "I will," he replied promptly. "I just need more time." I scoffed. "More time, Ryan? It's been a month. You haven't even sent me $20. He grew quiet. I could hear background noise, possibly from a video game. He wasn't even working, right? I felt my patience snap. "You're messing around, aren't you?" "No. I'm trying, man. I'm just dash." I cut him off. "I don't care about excuses. I bailed you out. I didn't have to, but I did. And now you're just ignoring it." "I'm not ignoring it," he exclaimed. Things have been hard, okay?" I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, well, things are going to get a lot tougher if you don't start paying me back." Silence. I exhaled. "Whatever. Just figure it out." I hung up. I expected something after that. $100 here, $50 there, whatever. Still nothing. A week later, I decided to ask my parents instead. If they had the money to bail Ryan out, they could help him repay me, right? So I called my father. As soon as he answered, I went to the point. "Hey, I need to talk to you about Ryan's debt." My father sighed in frustration. "What about it? He hasn't paid me anything. Not a dime." "So?" I halted. "What do you mean, so?" "You gave him the money. That was your choice." My grip on the phone tightened. It wasn't a gift. My father gave out a dry laugh. "Well, that's your problem." I couldn't believe I'd heard him right. "Excuse me. You chose to help him," my father said, as if explaining something to a child. "That's on you. Don't come crying to us about it." I was stunned into silence at first. "Those were your exact words." I finally said. "Family helps each other," you said, when you kicked me out. "But now that I need support, that no longer applies?" "Jack, you're an adult," he continued, his voice stern now. "Handle your own problems." I gave a quick laugh. "Wow. So if you need money, family helps each other. But when I need it, I'm on my own." "That's life," he remarked dismissively. "Don't you like it?" "Too awful." I felt sheer wrath rise up my spine. They asked me to come back. They begged me to save them. And as soon as they got their way, they abandoned me. "Got it," I replied coldly. "Enjoy your life, Dad." I hung up. I sat there for a minute, staring at my phone, trying to understand how deep their selfishness went. That's when I realized something. I wasn't about to let this go. Not this time. They assumed they could walk all over me. They were about to learn how mistaken they were. I sat in my apartment, staring at my phone and repeating my father's words over and over. "Handle your own problems." That is life. They really thought they could just use and discard me, that I would continue playing their game, keep bailing them out while they trampled all over me. They didn't know who they were dealing with. I wasn't about to let this go. I spent the following few days contemplating. If Ryan didn't pay me back, and my folks ignored it, I needed another way to get my money back. And then an idea struck me, one so simple I couldn't believe I hadn't thought of it sooner. I could still access my folks' Wi-Fi and cable accounts. I had set them up while I lived there, and the bills were always in my name because I was the one who paid for them. And guess what? They never updated the billing information after I departed. So, I logged in and canceled everything. The internet, gone, cut off. The cable, streaming services, disabled. They were officially off the grid. I sat back and waited. Sure enough, my mother called the next morning. "Jack," she answered, agitated. "The internet's down." I played dumb. "Huh? That's odd." She sighed. "Could you look into this? Your sister has school work, and we can't even watch television." I smiled. "Oh, I already know what happened." "What?" "I canceled it." Silence. "You what?" She finally spoke. "I canceled everything. Internet, cable, Netflix, whatever else you were using is no longer available." "Jack," she gasped. "Why would you do that?" I leaned back in my chair. "I'm not sure. Maybe because I'm still paying for it. But your sister needs it for school." "Then maybe," I responded slowly, "you should pay for it yourself." I could hear my father in the background. "What is going on?" "Jack canceled everything," my mother hissed. "Good," my father said. "We don't need him." I laughed. "Yeah, let's see how long you can do without Wi-Fi." My father grabbed the phone from my mother. "Listen, you little dash." I hung up. This should have been the end of it, but I didn't know what would happen next. A few days later, when I got home from work, something seemed off. My apartment door was unlocked. I always locked the door, always. My stomach twisted as I slowly pushed it open. Then I saw it. My apartment had been wrecked. Cushions were thrown everywhere. My laptop was missing. My drawers had been ripped open, and my television was gone. I stood there in shock. Then it hit me. This was not a random break-in. This was them. My family had broken into my house, and I just declared war. My heart pounded as I stood in the middle of my destroyed flat. My laptop was gone. My television was gone. Drawers were pulled open. Clothes were flung everywhere. I clenched my fist. I knew who did it. This was not a random break-in. This was them. I took a big breath and called the cops. When the officer arrived, he took one look at the mess and asked if I had any suspects. I didn't hesitate. I think my parents and my brother did it. He raised an eyebrow. Family. I nodded. I used to live with them. They kicked me out, and now we're not on good terms. I explained the whole situation, the money, the Wi-Fi, the debt. They most likely assumed this was vengeance. The cop took everything down. Then he asked the critical question, "Would you like to press charges?" I paused, not because I had reservations, but because it was a major step. If I filed charges, this wouldn't just be a family drama. It would be real. But then I thought about it. They'd broken into my house, stolen from me, after I helped them out, after I assisted them while they were deeply in debt. And the worst part? They presumably assumed I would do nothing, that I would simply accept the hit, as I always do. I met the officer's eyes. Yes, I answered. The next day, the cops arrived at my parents' house. I was not there, but I got a call from my mother shortly after that. "Jack," she was practically screaming. "What did you do?" I leaned back in my chair. "You broke into my place. You stole my belongings. What the hell were you expecting?" "It wasn't a big deal," she responded. "We just dash. You just what?" I snapped. "Teach me a lesson? Take back what you thought you deserved? Tell me, Mom, do you even feel bad about this?" She fell silent. Then, in a low voice, she added, "You didn't have to call the cops." I laughed. "Oh, so if I help you, I'm family. But when you rob me, I'm expected to let it go." "It wasn't robbery," she argued. "The cops disagree." She huffed. "Jack, we can fix this. Just drop the charges." "No." Her breath caught. "What?" I said no. I repeated. She gasped as if I'd slapped her. "Jack, this is serious. Your brother Dash. I gave him 12 grand. I snapped. And he still hasn't paid me back. Now he's breaking into my home. I'm finished." Silence. Then she made one last move. The guilt trip. "Are you really going to do this to your own family?" I took a deep breath. "No, Mom. You did it to yourself." I hung up. The cops discovered my television and laptop at a local pawn shop, sold under Ryan's name. That's all they needed. Ryan was caught for burglary, and my parents were charged as accomplices. My grandparents found out shortly after, and that's when things changed, because they were infuriated. For the first time in my life, my parents were about to experience real consequences. I didn't attend the court proceedings. I didn't have to. The proof was incontrovertible. Pawn shop records, surveillance footage, everything. Ryan pleaded guilty, perhaps believing he would get off lightly. My parents tried to justify that they had no idea what he was doing, but no one bought it. They all received probation, no prison time, but now they had a criminal record. And that was their problem, not mine. The true repercussions came when my grandparents found out. I'm not sure who told them, probably one of my aunts. But when I received a call from my grandfather, I could tell he was furious. "Jack," he asked in a raspy voice, "is it true? Did your parents and Ryan steal from you?" "Yes," I answered. "It's true." There was a long pause. Then, quietly, he stated, "They will regret it." I'm not sure what happened after that, but my grandparents went to war. They absolutely cut off my parents. There would be no more aid with bills, no more covering for them when they made mistakes. My father had always counted on them when things got tough, but now he was on his own. And the icing on the cake, my grandparents repaid me every single cent that Ryan owed me. They said they did not want me to carry that burden, that I'd done more than enough. And they made one thing very clear. They were not doing this for my parents. They were doing it because I was the only one in the family who had acted ethically. That was the last time I spoke to my folks. Ryan texted me a half-hearted apology a few months later, possibly because my mother made him, but I didn't answer. After all of this, I realized something. I had spent years trying to help people who would never help me in return. And I was finished. Now, I wasn't anyone's savior, not their safety net, not their ATM. I was going to live my life for myself. And if my folks got into trouble again, they could handle it on their own.